It's Sway in the morning, only on Shade 45.
Denise in Las Vegas. Are you there, Denise?
I'm here.
Go ahead. Welcome
I'm just disgusted that so many people are calling saying that this is okay. I just can't believe it. I remember I got pulled over in junior high. Well, not pulled over, but we got stopped after a bus fight, and it was like I'm taking down police officers' names. I'm home, and I'm outraged. And so I can't imagine this happening to people on a frequent basis, and people don't see that this could be detrimental to them as a person.
Mm-hmm. You know, we have 8-year-olds in this city who tease each other because because one is a stop and frisk virgin. Because the other 8-year-old hasn't been stopped by the cops yet. We cannot raise a generation of kids to expect that they're going to get frisked when they're children, because they're going to turn around, they're going to expect it for their children, and we're going to be living like this forever. Folks have to stand up and say, enough is enough. If my kid's innocent, treat him like he's innocent. If my kid's a criminal, treat him fairly, but treat him like he's a criminal. And so, yeah, no, I mean, you know, this is outrageous, and it's heartbreaking to hear the mothers stand up and talk about their strong, proud 18-year-old sons curling in the fetal position on the couch and crying, saying, why'd the cops do that to me? I didn't do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. And when you have this much contact with the cops, then you increase the likelihood that a young girl will get sexually assaulted, a young boy will be killed or beaten. You know, there's a lot of bad things that can happen when you have more stop and frisk of young black men and boys than there are young black men and boys in the entire city.
Okay. President Obama, the NAACP, you guys work closely with the president?
Yes.
All right. How do you think, how would you rate the job he's done as president up until this point?
You know, as the first black president walking into 2 wars, a recession, and a resurgent far right-wing populist movement that has called him everything but a child of God. Mm-hmm. You know, I think the man's done pretty well just to keep it together. Right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He has done a great job for a man who's had to deal most of the time with a Congress that wouldn't do anything. He could have done a much better job if Congress was willing to actually, because Congress makes the laws and they actually appropriate the money. And what we need right now are jobs investments. Mm-hmm. And Congress has held him over a barrel every time they've let him get a little bit of money out to create jobs. And for the last 2 years said, that's it. We're not creating any more jobs. The problem is that is the playbook from the Great Depression that turned our country around. And when you say to the president, we're not going to let you use the one playbook that the country knows works, that's where our anger should be right now.
Okay. All right. Nakia, you have a question, right?
I do have a question. Since you brought up President Obama, many people say that he hasn't done enough for the black community. And I know as the president, he is the president of the United States of America, so all citizens of color. But what do you say to those people who bring up that argument that he hasn't done much for the black community? Yeah. And what should he be doing for the black community?
Sure. You know, this president has rebuilt, for instance, the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. Why is that important? Because we got southern states that are literally passing the first poll tax since we got rid of the poll tax. We call it strict voter ID. It requires you actually pay to get an ID before you can vote. It will exclude, in some places, 3/4 of the young black men in the city don't have an up-to-date valid ID. And voting is a right. So it's not a privilege. So it's his DOJ that's going after it. George Bush's DOJ actually promoted that type of policy. Wouldn't have gone after that. You know, we've had an increase in hate crimes. They're going after hate crimes. They're also taking on notoriously corrupt police departments like the one in New Orleans. Again, something that Bush's DOJ wouldn't have done. So there's a lot of good civil rights work happening. The president is the reason that GM is still in business. Mitt Romney, was very clear back then. I don't want to get involved in campaigning. We're a nonpartisan group, but there were a lot of folks at the time who were saying, just let him die. And there's a lot of black folks who are employed by GM. If you're in Detroit, it's one of the few places where a black man can still go to get a decent job. So he has been very courageous. But you cannot underestimate what he's been dealing with in Congress. We had 400 good bills passed in the House when the Democrats were in control that couldn't get through the Senate because in the Senate, you need a supermajority to pass anything. The Republicans have filibustered everything. And so that's what we're dealing with right now. So, yes, I think that the president could have done more if Congress would have worked with him. I think that the president will do more. We have pushed him to be more explicit on issues of racial discrimination. And at the same time, he has done more than any president in recent memory to actually fight racial discrimination. Recently, Pepsi was fined $3 million. They were using formerly incarcerated status to basically lock black men out of employment. And so there have been a lot. He has really taken on 2 wars, taking on this recession, and also rebuilding the entire civil rights apparatus inside of our government. And there's a lot of folks who have benefited from that in ways that they won't even understand for a few years when they look back and realize that but for Holder protecting their voting rights or turning around their police department, they would be living in a very different place.
Ben Jealous, president of the NAACP.
Thanks, Sway.
It's Sway in the morning, only on Shade 45.